All right, here we are. We're in a session of spiritual gumbo where we're going to prove that they robbed Peter to pay Paul, and by no means is this a. It's not the old adage where you actually take from someone to give another person, but what's happening is that Peter is really lost in translation to what people see as good or evil. In the story of the New Testimony, and give me one moment, because right now I have this. So there's 3 different chapters you're going to want to get to, maybe even 4. If you have a King James Version Bible at home, you're going to want to go to Ephesians chapter 6, verse 5, and then Colossians chapter 3, verse 22. But where we're going to start is in the book of the Exodus. And I wanted to give some gravitas about what's being said because we're also going to go, one second. Let me just Google it real quick. That's the only thing I didn't pull up. One second. And he turned and said unto Peter, there we go. Matthew 16:23. We're going to be checking that out too. Okay, give me a moment. Bang. So here it is. We start in the book of the Exodus. Peter is going to tell the people something like this later on. This is exactly what these are supposed to be Peter's words. We're in 1 Peter, we're in the 2nd chapter, and we're at the 18th verse. It says, servants, be subject to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the froward. For this is thankworthy, verse 19, if a man for conscience toward God endure grief, suffer wrongfully. Stop right there. We're gonna read what everybody says before we go to Exodus. So that way you understand that is not rooted in the law of Moses, a one tiddlywink. To tell a man that he has to suffer at the hands of his oppressor and do so gladfully is the most ignorant, benign, and nauseating thought that I could actually ask someone to process while they are actually being oppressed. It's silly. So while we go forth, we're in Colossians, right? And I said chapter 3, verse 22. And we pick up. And this is what this man says. This is Paul now. Servants, obey in all things your masters, according to the flesh, not with eye service as men pleasures, but in singleness of heart, fearing God. Now, there are so many different ways that one verse can be interpreted. I'm going to go back and break that down because Ephesians 6 and 5 is going to sound almost just like Peter. So listen to what Paul says again. Verse 22 of Colossians chapter 3. Servants, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service as men pleasurers, but in singleness of heart, fearing God. So the man is saying, no matter what they do, you don't judge it, you don't look at it, you always obey. You just obey. Okay, these are the verses. These are the so-called scriptures that were used for slaves, used on slaves to justify, okay, the wrongfulness of how they were treated. This right here supports what I said, in the birth of Catholicism, where I explained to everyone how the actual religion of Catholicism itself was established so that way they could eradicate most of the teachings of the Old Testimony and then therefore further promote the teachings of the New Testimony, making it thoroughly known to people, this Jesus character and all things that took place. Why this is so important and so critical, because what would eventually happen is the transatlantic slave trade. It's a very critical thing. You see this. So because these verses are written down like this, what happens is that you have a character named not just Peter, but Paul as well, but they robbed Peter to pay Paul. Now you guys are starting to see what I'm saying. It's deep, huh? So, and we're going to talk about how Jesus only called the only time he calls Satan on the mountain, he calls him out, but he calls Peter Satan. It's a big, huge deal. It is no little thing. But we're going to keep going on this. So, and he says in verse 23, and whatsoever ye do, do it heartily, as to the Lord and not unto men. So he's saying that you're going to act as if your service to your master is in your service to God. See what I'm saying? What's happening, bro? Quick catch up. Ephesians 6, verse 5. Matthew 16:23. But right now we're in Colossians, and I'm going to read Peter's to you again, so that way you get the gravity of what I'm saying. And they robbed Peter to pay the man Paul, brother. They took a lot of the brunt of the blame of the bloodshed that the world saw, and I'm just now realizing Peter is the father, or he's the co-parent of this sick, perverted, so-called faith. You see what I'm saying? What's happening, brother? You know, and this is about to be something that a lot of people have obviously overlooked. So now, what Paul has said in the 2 verses, he said that, so you don't worry about what you see. You worry about what you do. And everything you do, you act like you're praising and worshiping God. It's a big deal that he's asking people to do that. It's no small thing to request unto the people to overlook what you may know to be wrong. So nothing that you've heard is about edifying the law. That right. Let's go ahead and go to Ephesians. Give me one moment. 6 and 5. That's it. Okay. That can't be right. I'm saying, right. Give me 1 second. It's a super small chapter. I think I'm just turning the pages on it. Where is it at? Caught back here between a couple of books. Give me 1 moment. I'm sorry, y'all. Jaime, Hebrews, Timothy, Thessalonians, Galatians, Corinthians. Okay. I thought it was between Corinthians and Galatians, but here we go. All right, it's right here. There we go. Thank you. These chapters are so dang small. Chapter 6, verse 5. Servants. Whoa. We got to read verse 4 going into verse 5, otherwise it won't make sense. I just have to read the whole thing. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment, with promise. Stop right there. This is the issue. The man starts off a wicked diatribe. Right on? He starts it off wickedly. Because he knows that he's using this to hook the people in so they listen to everything else, and everything else that follows is garbage. Now listen, here we go. That it may be well with thee, and that thou mayest live long on the earth. And ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Servants, be obedient to them that are your masters, according to the flesh, with fear and trembling, and singleness of your heart as unto Christ, not with eye service as men pleasurers, as men pleasers, but as the servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart. Stop right there, man. This is wild. With good will, doing service as the Lord and not to men. Stop right there. Do y'all hear how double-minded that is? What's popping, everybody? Did everybody hear how double-minded that is? Okay, so how can you serve the Most High God and then serve in singleness of heart, but live in fear and trembling of your master, who may not be living in service of the Most High God? Caveat, those things don't marry up. Let's go back to Peter, though, because Peter's not getting away, because they robbed Peter to pay Paul. They really did. I got him right here in this other Bible. Let's just go ahead and sit this one down. That's my Schofield Reference Bible. It's just so old. It's so ginger. I can't just treat it however. Make sure it's righteous up here. There we go. So 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 18 again, right? Servants, be subject to your masters with all fear. This is wild. Not only to the good and gentle, but also to the froward. Froward being somebody who is like wicked or evil. You know what I'm saying? It's wild, I know. Hold on. For this is thankworthy. What? If a man for conscience toward God endure grief, suffering wrongly. For what glory is if when ye be buffeted for your faults, ye shall take it patiently? For what glory is it if when ye be buffeted for your faults, ye shall take it patiently? But if when ye do well, ye suffer, ye take it patiently, this is acceptable to God. This guy is crazy. Listen, nigga, please. Look, no matter, as long as you take it, as long as you never curse the Most High God and you keep it trucking, you can't tell somebody how to live and how to go about their life. There's laws about self-conduct, but the laws don't tell you how to move. This is telling you exactly what to do. Like, you can't get mad if you're suffering. You just have to look the other way. Are you hearing this? This is what they were telling slaves. Doesn't make any sense. Now I'm going to read something to y'all. Contrary to everything you just heard, you're going to understand why slaves used to use the Bible as a mechanism to want to run away. We're going to go all the way to the book of the Exodus. Okay? And we're going to start in the 21st chapter. And we're going to pick it up. I'm going to skip all the way down because, I don't want to hold you too long, but I want to get this point out there and I want to expound on a few other things, like the Peter getting called Satan. Give me a minute. So we're going to pick up at verse 20 in chapter 21. And if a man smite his manservant or his maidservant with the rod, and the party die under his hands, he shall surely be punished. But if the servant continue to live a day or two, let not the master be punished, for he is his money. And if two men strive and smite a woman with child, and her child be born imperfectly formed, he shall be forced to pay a penalty, and the woman's husband may lay upon him. He shall pay with the valuation. But if it be perfectly formed, he shall give hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. And if one smite the eyes of his, listen, and if one smite the eyes of his manservant or the eyes of his maidservant and put it out, he shall let them go free for their eye's sake. And if he should smite out the maid, and if he shall smite out the tooth of his manservant or the tooth of his maidservant, he shall send them away free for their tooth's sake. And if a bull gore a man or a woman, and they die, the bull shall be stoned with stones, and his flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the bull shall be clear. But if the bull shall have been given to goring in former time, and men should have told his owner, and he should not have removed him, but he should have slain a man or woman, the bull shall be stoned, and the owner shall also die. And if a ransom should be imposed on him, he shall pay for the ransom of his soul as much as they shall lay upon him. And if the bull gore a son or daughter, let them do to him according to this ordinance. And if the bull gore a manservant or maidservant, he shall pay to their master 30 silver didrachms, and the bull shall be stoned. I'm not going to read all the extra stuff because it kind of doesn't all the way marry up with what we want to talk about. I'm going to do two things. While I'm talking to you, I'm going to skillfully go back to the book of the Maccabees, and I'm going to look while I'm speaking to you. Just look down, so don't get. I'm talking to you guys, but don't think I'm disrespecting. I have to find the spot where Judas Maccabeus is going to pretty much allow the Romans into the land. You see what I'm saying? Because he writes a declaration, and this is what happens when you read and you remember and you care about your people. Now, did everybody hear what I just said? What was just going down? The Most High God tells us, hey, you let your maidservant go. If you knock out their tooth, smite their eye, if you do something to them, they're to be let free. So the idea that it's okay for your master to treat you however and for you to serve them with trembling and fear, that doesn't make sense. Give me a moment. And I'm going to, here we go. And I'm going to read to y'all out of the book of the Maccabees, chapter 8 of the first Maccabees. And we're going to read from verse 1 or whatever, going on down. Now, Judah had heard of the fame of the Romans, that they were mighty and valiant men, and such as would lovingly accept all that joined themselves unto them, and make a league of amity with them and make a league of amity with all that came unto them. There we go. And that they were men of great valor. And it was told him also of their wars and noble acts which they had done among the Galatians, and how they had conquered them and brought them under tribute, and what they had done in the country of Spain for the winning of the mines of silver and gold, which is there. And that by their policy and patience they had conquered all the place, though it were very far from them. And the kings also that came against them from the uttermost part of the earth, till they had discomfited them, and had given them a great overthrow, so that the rest did give them tribute every year. Besides, how they had discomfited in battle Philip and Perseus, king of the Scythians, and with others that lifted up themselves against them, and had overcome them. How also Antiochus, the great king of Asia, that came against them in battle, having 120 elephants and horsemen and chariots and a very great army, was discomfited by them, how they took him alive and covenanted that he and such as reigned after him should pay a great tribute and give hostages, and which was agreed upon. And the country of India and Media and Lydia, and of the goodliest countries which they took of him, and gave to King Eumenes. Moreover, how the Grecians had determined to come and destroy them, and they that having knowledge thereof sent against them a certain captain, and fighting with them slew many of them, and carried away captives their wives and their children, and spoiled them, and took possession of their lands, and pulled down their strongholds, and brought them to be servants unto this day. And if it was told him besides how they destroyed and brought under their dominion all of the kingdoms and isles that at any time resisted them, but with their friends and such as relied upon them, they kept amity. So they kept pretty much a general truce of peace. And that they had conquered kingdoms both far and nigh, insomuch as all that had heard of their name were afraid of them. Now, this is all talking about the Romans. Understand, this is Judas Maccabeus talking about the Romans. This is why he's trying to make league with these guys, right? Okay, listen. And where we at? But with their friends and as such as relied upon them, they kept amity. And they had conquered kingdoms both far and nigh, insomuch as all that had heard their names were afraid of them. Also that whom they would help to a kingdom, those reign, and whom again they displace. Finally, that they were greatly exalted. Yet all this, none of them wore a crown, or was clothed in purple, to be magnified thereby. Moreover, they had made themselves a senate house. What? A senate house, wherein 320 men sat in council daily, consulting a way for the people, to the end they might be well ordered, and that they committed their government to one man every year, who ruled over all their country, and that all were obedient to that one, and that there was neither envy nor emulation among them. In consideration of these things, Judas chose Eupolemus, the son of John, the son of Achos, the son of Jason, the son of Eleazar, and sent them to Rome to make a league of amity and confederacy with them, and to entreat them that they would take the yoke from them. For they saw that the kingdom of the Grecians did oppress Israel with servitude. They went therefore to Rome, which was a great journey, and came into the Senate, where they spake and said, Judas Maccabeus with his brethren and the people of the Jews sent us unto you to make a confederacy and peace with you, and that we might be registered your confederates and friends. Stop right there. When this happened, when they did that, that was the invitation of the Romans into Judea. So if you're wondering ever how it happened, this is what happened. Now I'm gonna leave that be. But that's a great deal of importance, because all the things that you've heard about with Paul being grabbed up by the captain of the guard, him speaking Greek, him talking about he's a Roman citizen, all those things hold great importance. Now, let's read the part about Jesus calling Peter Satan. And we're going to go to the book of Matthew, okay? And I'm going to bring it all the way back home about how they robbed Peter to pay Paul. That's just a bonus little piece, so that way we can understand how you can get the atmosphere. The Romans pretty much betrayed the Israelites because they acted as if they were going to get the Grecians up off of them, but really they just wanted complete domination, and they wanted access to the kingdom. It's all crazy stuff. Anyway, let's go to the book of Matthew, and we're here right now. And we're at chapter 16, you understand? And it's at verse 23. Here we are. And we're going to read a couple verses before that, so that way we all understand what was going on. So, Jesus is telling them that, that like pretty much it's going to be over, right? But listen to this right here. Verse 21, from that time forth began Jesus to shew unto his disciples how that he must go into Jerusalem and suffer many things of the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed and be raised again the third day. Listen to this. Then Peter took him and began to rebuke him, saying, be it far from thee, Lord, this shall not be unto thee. But he turned and said unto Peter, this is deep, get thee behind me, Satan. Thou art an offense to me, for thou savorest not the things that be of God, but those that be of men. Now I need y'all to understand. If anybody else said anything to Jesus that offended him to where he called him Satan, it's not written down anywhere where I know. That was the sign to Jesus that I think he needed to see. I know it's hard for people to believe that the Messiah may have known that he was actually rocking with Satan the whole time. Okay? Think about this. And we're going to go to Luke as well. I hate that stuff so being bright. I hate the bright screens being in my eyes like that. I hate that. I can't stand it. That's why I like everything low lit. Cannot stand bright lights in my eyes. Anyway, so we're gonna go to Luke 4:8 in a minute. But just check this out. Do I need to remind you that in Exodus 21, okay, roughly verse 20 going on down, do I need to remind you how the Most High God made it clear? He made it clear you need to relinquish unto your servant their freedom, right on, if you do anything to them. That's a fact. And there's instances where the person's supposed to be put to death. So I just can't help but to believe that in good faith, there's no way that any of us should be believing that a character like Paul or Peter, right, is any good. Give me 1 second. So we're at Matthew, and we were at verse 23. Chapter 16, verse 23. Peter is the only man to be called Satan. Brothers and sisters, as we get ready to hear this next part, right, where he talks to Satan, so-called on the mountain, and Luke 4:8, so let me get there. And check that out, that he calls Peter Satan in the book of Matthew. Okay? And people can say, like, oh, well, the books are all the same stories, but they don't all say the same thing. So, Luke 4:8. I'm there now. I want y'all to think about this. What are the chances that Peter was actually Satan on the mountain? Because I know this is it seems far-fetched, but it's actually very plausible and very possible that Peter actually was Satan on the mountain. And I'm not speaking sideways. I'm speaking to the level that, once again, in the very first book, it let us be known to us, right? That Peter's rebuked and called Satan. 2 books later, in the book of Luke, we read about the instance where Jesus is on top of the mountain, right? So let's read it. And Jesus, being full of the Holy Ghost, returned from Jordan and was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, being 40 days tempted of the devil. Now, this is the devil, is not Satan. Understand that. And in those days, he did eat nothing. And when they were ended, he afterward hungered. And the devil said unto him, if thou be the Son of God, command this stone that it be made bread. Now, I need y'all to understand this. When they use the word devil and Satan interchangeably, know that they're not the same. Okay? Know that in the Old Testament, there is no instance where the devil and Satan are used interchangeably. But the New Testament is a translation and transliteration, right? So they can put whatever words there they want. That's just like when they did the story with Stephen, and he calls the tabernacle of witness a church, but then later calls another building a tabernacle, right? So they choose what they wanted to put here. I just needed that to be known before we carry forth. They chose all of those words. So everything we're hearing, these are select words, but we have to understand what they're trying to say to us. And the devil said unto him, if thou be the Son of God, command this stone that it be made bread. And Jesus answered, saying, it is written that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word of God. And the devil, taking him up into a high mountain, shewed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. In a moment of time. So, every kingdom. So, could you guys imagine, like, how they do like the 3D image thing, right? Like the projection, right? Something like that. Only, with demonic energy. At least fallen. And the devil said unto him, all this power I will give thee, and the glory of them, for that is delivered unto me, and to whomever I will give it. If thou therefore wilt worship me, all shall be thine. And Jesus answered and said unto him, get thee behind me, Satan, for it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. Stop right there. Let's read Peter's instance one more time so y'all get what Peter tried to get him to do. Note, the devil, Satan, that they're trying to use interchangeably, Satan knows what the Messiah is there to do. Satan knows that the Messiah came to sacrifice himself, to reestablish or to make it known to the people that the covenant is still good. So when Peter says, don't kill yourself, he's pretty much trying to say, don't fulfill the promise of making sure that the covenant is still known with the people. Now, that's not looked at by people. Nobody says that, right? Nobody says, hey, Peter says some pretty suspect stuff, right? Nobody says, that was That was awfully off of the man. Now, here's where Peter gets dragged by his neck. Again, because we have to think about this, y'all. Why call him, of all things he could have said to Peter? Why call the man Satan? Why? Then Peter took him. No, let's just read it again. From that time forth, verse 21 of chapter 16. From that time forth began Jesus to shew unto his disciples how that he must go into Jerusalem and suffer many things of the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed and be raised and be raised again the third day. Listen, out of all the disciples, Peter, right? Now, this is the funniest thing I need y'all to get. Peter's the only one in the book of the Acts who's talking out the side of his whole neck. Right. Give me one moment. But he turned and said unto Peter, Get thee behind me, Satan. Thou art an offense to me. For thou savorest not the things that be of God, but those that be of men. Okay, now stop right there. He tells Satan, hey, bro, you good? So he says to Peter, he says, yo, Satan, what you are talking about are the things that make men happy. You see what I'm saying? He's saying what you do makes you happy, right? You don't do what makes the Most High God happy. Now understand what I'm trying to say to y'all. They tell people to serve their masters and be in trembling and fear and all this other good stuff, and tell them to do it mindfully of the Most High God. Think about that. They say, think about the God of glory while you suffer. That's not what he's saying. Do I need to read it to you again where he says, yo, think not I came to abolish the prophets or the laws. I came not to destroy, but to fulfill. Right. So why would he come here? Why did he come here, y'all? To destroy what the Most High God had already established. Why would Peter, think about this, why is Peter the only disciple to say anything to him? Why did nobody else? Why did one of his blood brothers say something to him? Right. It's no small thing that Peter is a legitimate turncoat. Right on? He's a legit turncoat. He is. He literally could have been. What I'm trying to say is that it's believed that if there's evil spirits and all that stuff in the New Testament, the Son of Man could have actually had tarrying with him this dude Satan. So that way he knew where he was at. Right. See, he was around all kind of unclean stuff all the time. It's deep, y'all. It's not just a matter of possession. Why would he say that to Peter? Right? Once again, like, why would he say, one moment. Why would he say, it's going to get me some water. I don't have any. Anyway, why would he say to Peter that you need to get behind me because you're an offense to the rules. You offend all the things that are righteous. It's going just fine, brother. Now, at this point, we've been riding through the mud with Peter, and his face has been hitting rocks and hitting dirt. Some of his teeth are knocked out. because it's awfully suspicious that they can say that Judas is called the son of perdition, but the problem with saying that Judas is called the son of perdition is this, is how do we know what that word really means? Right on? So they translated and transliterated everything. I'm not saying that they can make up the meaning of the word, but they tell us what it means, essentially. So if they want to say that he's the son of hell or anything like it, but he delivered it, but he did what he was supposed to do. Think about that. And for all the bad things about Judas, Judas kills himself. Right. So Peter goes on living, and Peter's the true architect and the unspoken father of the Catholic faith. Think about that. He's the father of their faith. Paul is the front runner. They robbed Peter to pay Paul, y'all. Is Paul ever called Satan? I don't think so. He's called Mercurius. And I think Paul rolls with the guy named Barnabas, if I'm not mistaken, and he was considered to be Jupiter. And I've always contended that Barabbas, the man that was freed instead of Jesus, was literally Lucifer in the flesh. I know it's hard to believe, y'all, that all these things may have taken. It's easier to believe that all these fallen forces and the Son of Man were in the same area, were in the similar area at one point in time than not. It's just easier to believe that. It's easy to believe that if the Son of Man was here, why wouldn't Lucifer and why would Satan not want to try to get as close as they can to thwart the plans? Come on. So it gives rise to the minion type of mentality that we see, because essentially, once again, I'm going to read to y'all again from the book of Peter's. Okay? It's 1 Peter, and it's chapter 2, verse 18. Now this is weird. Now hold on, let's read verse 17 first. Honor all men. Love the brotherhood. Fear God. Honor the king. Stop right there. Why is honor the king last? I'm trying to tell y'all, man, there's something wrong. Something wrong with that. Something not right about those words. How can you hear that and not be a little like, man, what is Peter trying to say? Right? So, and then he follows on to say, servants, be subject to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the froward. For this is thankworthy, if a man for conscience toward God endure grief, suffering wrongfully. That doesn't even make sense. What good is there for justice if you can't get no justice? They conditioned our people with these words. It's not that he who have no sin cast the first stone, or he that is without sin cast the first stone. It's what you're hearing. Okay? What you're hearing right now is exactly the problem. Okay? It's not the idea. It's not the idea that that you can do no wrong, right? Or if you've because the he who without sin cast the first stone takes place where a lady's supposed to have committed adultery. But the issue with the situation is where's the man? Right. Where's her husband and where's the man at? Because she's not the only one that's supposed to die the death. Right. So her husband has to be among those who were going to throw stones at the man, right? To stone him and his woman to death. The man who's the adulterer with his wife, right? The adulterer and the adulteress, right? So where's the man at? So that has nothing to do with what this situation is talking about, because that's not a servant. That's not a servant. That's not a slave to master aspect. That's husband to wife, and husband to wife. If you read the scripture and understand how it's written out, a woman is going to cleave to her husband, and a man is going to cleave to his wife, and they're both going to submit to one another. Now, these are established at different places in time, but the idea the idea of a person being a servant has always been there. So whether or not a person is somebody's husband or wife has nothing to do with them being a servant. What has to do with what I'm saying is that if I tell you, if I pluck out your eye, because I'm forward, I'm an evil master, okay? Or I knock out your tooth or your teeth. It says right here in the Bible, you have to just take that. If I whip your back, right, you have to just take that, no matter what they do. And then, you see what I'm saying? Right. There's no need to read the Deuteronomy curses to you if I can just go back to weak stuff like this, where it's saying to the slave, right? And this is supposed to be bona fide scripture. This is supposed to be the real thing, y'all. So how can it be the real thing once again? You know what I'm saying? If what's the word I'm looking for? It's telling you to go against what's all good. Like the most basic things, the most basic tenets. I'm saying? I'm not going to read about returning the slave to their master, because this isn't talking about running away per se. This is talking about just take it. Just stand there and take it. And you think that you don't think they robbed Peter to pay Paul? The gravity of what he says, so-called said, is so heavy that it's not just Paul, it's Peter as well. But Peter's called Satan way before this point in the New Testament. Understand that. And they don't call the book First Pete. It's called Peter. You know how they changed the name Judas to Jude, right? So there's no mistake, and this is supposed to be his doing. Do y'all understand that the man sat down with the uncircumcised and he ate with them, and he had the nerve to blame what he did on the Most High God? This is the same guy who's supposed to be following the law, talking about, but please the Most High God while you do what you do. Don't y'all see the duplicity and all that? What are the chances that this dude was really an unclean spirit? Like, I know people like, why would the Son of Man tarry with him? Why would I not? How did he find Jesus in the mountain? Huh? He can just take over men or something. He can do whatever. Apparently, its ability to possess or to influence the mind, powerful. But I'm contending that the spirit that was within Peter is the same spirit that was on that mountain range with the Messiah. Why else would he? Those are the only two times in the whole New Testament the "get thee behind me, Satan" reference is used. It is not a small thing. Do not overlook it. If you guys act like what I said tonight is no big deal, it's going to be one of those things where you're going to realize you've almost done yourself in, and you've done yourself no service. Read those verses for yourself. Read the whole chapter so you really see what they're trying to say. But it doesn't change it doesn't change those words. So no matter how you read those words are those words. Okay? He didn't say, hey, an eye for an eye, right? Did he say that? No. Did he say a tooth for a tooth? Did he say a wound for a wound, a burn for a burn? Right. Did he say pretty much we're going to get even? No. This is why a master is supposed to let the servant free. Because if you pluck out their eye, now let's say the servant kills this person, right? However, there's a tussle. You see what I'm saying? Like, and this is why it brought up the whole goring of a person. Because an owner might have a bull gore this person on purpose. Right on? Did it have to say that? No. You can just imagine all the different ways you can get gored by a bull. But one of the very most plausible ways is that the person makes that bull do that to you, entices the bull to do that to you. This is why if that bull killed one person and then killed another, they're pretty much trying to say like, oh, you murdered people with the bull and tried to get away with it. Word? Or you're covering up for the bull. You think it's a prize bull, a stud, whatever. Nope. Got to go. You and the bull now. So, and you're not to eat that animal. See what I'm saying? That's deep. I mean, once again, nothing that they're saying is that detailed. No thing they're saying is on that level of understanding. They're literally telling you that you have to stand there, and while somebody beats you across the head with a 2x4, you should say, thank you, man, have another. When Joseph was in Egypt, I can't think of any one time when somebody beat Joseph down. Can y'all? Can anybody think of any one time when Joseph took a beat down? Right. All that matters. Let's keep running Paul through the mud. No, Peter, excuse me. But these guys are like wonder twins. And you have to understand that they took so much from Peter to pay Paul his due diligence. So that way it took off the impact of how much Peter helped Paul set up the church. I was waiting for one of my brothers to send me the part of the book of the Acts. I just haven't had the time to find it, to go back over and to come through and to find it, where they pretty much say, where Paul is asking Peter pretty much, hey man, are you down for the cause or not? And it's one of those things, y'all, where we have to realize these two characters met each other. It's not like they didn't. Right. Right. This is no small thing. It's a major thing. They've taken tenets from what Peter has said and most of the tenets of what Paul says and merged them together, and they created this religion called Catholicism. Right on? And the sub-religions of it are called Christianity is a subgroup. Because Peter, I told you, he is the de facto father of Catholicism. Paul's just a front man. Poster boy, poster child, whatever you want to call it. That's what he is, poster man. But he's a sellout of the worst kind. He's a demon and the devil. And I know a lot of people don't think it's that bad. It really is that bad, y'all. So before we head out, just hear this one more time in the book of the Exodus. And I'm going to read this one last time to y'all from the book of Colossians to the book of Ephesians and the book of Peter. No, we'll leave Peter be. I think we've stressed Peter enough. Let's just read what Paul says in conjunction or before what. You can think that Paul said it first, but these are Peter's words. So once again, it doesn't matter who said it first. The fact that Peter and Paul are saying the same thing and it's found nowhere else in the New Testament, that's concerning. So let's read this again. And if one smite the eye of his maidservant, of his manservant, or the eye of his maidservant, verse 26 of chapter 21 of the Exodus, and put it out, he shall let them go free for their eye's sake. And if he should smite out the tooth of his manservant, or the tooth of his maidservant, he shall send them away free for their tooth's sake. Stop right there. Do you hear anything about suffering for the froward? Huh? Do y'all hear anything about taking it? Just taking it? Do you hear anything about eye service or being men pleasers? Huh? Men pleasures. And let me stop. I'm so rude. Yeah, pleasers, pleasurers, it's all the same thing to me. See what I'm saying? So, how can, two men, in this case, usurp what is the law of Moses? And this is in the Exodus, y'all. We didn't, not Leviticus. I mean, you can probably find something similar again later on. I don't think it's written just like this, but something similar to it. But it's normally talking about, I think after this is talking about like when they run away and not turning them back to their, to their masters or whatever. Still, point being this is in the book of the Exodus. Okay? It's the second book of the Bible. Y'all want me to take Peter and Paul over the second book of the Bible, over the Torah, Pentateuch, where their words are based because of the faith that they're supposed to believe is based on the Torah and the Pentateuch. Right. Anybody else think I'm tripping? Are y'all starting to see the gravity of the situation here? That the spirit that was within Peter was a very, very, at best, a dubious spirit. Highly questionable spirit. And at worst, it was a spirit meant to be kept in check and kept close so it could be kept at bay. We have all the players. They're all there. The Messiah picked this guy. He knew what he was about before. He waited for the moment to call him Satan. Why call him Satan once again? Out of everybody. I need y'all to not make that a small thing. I need y'all to really tonight, tomorrow, and the next day, for the next couple days, I need y'all to really just tell me what you think. Okay? And I'm gonna have to put that somewhere in the description. I have to ask people what they think. Tell me why you think the Messiah would only ever call Peter Satan out of all the disciples. Think about that for a moment. Did he call doubtful Thomas Satan when he didn't believe? No. But called Peter Satan. And he called Thomas, forget this. He doesn't even question Thomas's faith. He calls out Thomas after his so-called death in the flesh. So how can it be that one man is considered, he's not the enemy of God in the sense that the Satans were created by the host of heaven. Their temptation, in essence. In the book of Enoch, anyway, I'll have to read it again this year. I'll have to read. Don't worry, I'm gonna get to the book of Enoch sometime. Just not right now. But this has been very fun. I have enjoyed myself. Colossians. Give me one moment. Chapter 3:22. And with that said, brothers and sisters, I think we got to look at the situation just a little more. Glass, glass is most definitely full. You know what I mean? And they're full of it. Whatever it is, they're full of it because they're saying to you right now, brothers and sisters, that if somebody whooped your head, right, you should just take that. Does that even sound right to you? Brothers and sisters, does that sound right at all? That if somebody beats you across your head, you should just take it. You should just stand there and just be willful about letting somebody do you wrong. Now, this is the nonsense that I'm talking about. Is that for anybody to, once again, I call out Paul all the time, but what Peter did is so egregious. In that one verse, it hurts so bad. Where is it at? Do I already have it over there? Once again, like I told you, these chapters are so small. There we go. Verse 22. Servants. This is Colossians chapter 3, verse 22. Servants, obey in all things your masters, according to the flesh, not with eye service as men pleasers, but in singleness of heart, fearing God. And whatsoever ye do, do it heartily, as to the Lord and not unto men. Where does it, once again, I'm trying to figure out, why are they saying anything than what the law says? Why say your own thing? Why change what's written and act like that's a big deal. And y'all wonder why there's so much confusion. I'm not saying to throw out the entire New Testament. I'm saying that if what you read goes against the laws of Moses, throw it out. It's just that simple. If what you're reading goes against the laws of Moses, you can discount it and you can highly critique it. In this situation, we're not just going to throw it out because there's people who believe that every single part of the scripture is to be taken serious. So get your pastors, your preachers, whoever to explain to us, why would it tell us to do that? How can you be a men pleaser if somebody poke your eye out? Once again, you see how the Old Testament broke it down, how somebody, right, because Paul is acting like if somebody put their hands on you, you're just going to be fine. But I forgot, Paul got stoned like to death and came back from that. So, getting treated however ain't no big deal to somebody like that. Okay, now, y'all better be careful. There's a lot more going on in the New Testament than people could ever realize. Did anyone listen to when we bridged together the Maccabees and how Judas Maccabeus sent out his people to be emissaries to the Romans? Okay, Paul is in league with the Romans. That's no little thing. Not at all. Remember Cornelius, the Roman who didn't want to eat with Peter? These are not small coincidences. It's no small thing that the Roman Catholic Church is what came out on top of the Crusades. They robbed Peter to pay Paul. I bet, boy, serious, big deal. They owe Peter some credit for a lot of the wrongdoing and a lot of the evil that has taken place in the name of the Most High God. They do. They owe Peter as much credit for that as they owe Paul. That's a fact. Without what Peter y'all got to understand. Not only does Peter try to get the Messiah to not fulfill his destiny, right? But after the fact that he's dead, he goes and says something that's against the scripture. You can't find it anywhere else but between Paul and... Now, why would it be the one guy who I'm saying is the most dastardly character in the whole New Testament? He's not a regular man by any means. Nope. But I do end this wonderful piece on this note, though. If Peter wasn't a man in the flesh and he was allowed to tarry with all those people back then, do you think that it was allowed so that way it would expose all the turncoats within? So that way people pretty much anybody who knows the law is going to do the law. They're going to try their best to do the law. And people who really don't want to do the law and just want to use the script. So they're going to use everything that Peter and Paul has said, right on, to try to get everything done. The worst issues in church, people speaking in tongues, right? All the whoring and looseness between the people, right? All the money that are given up, right, to these churches, to these big and small churches. Some small churches ain't making a lick, but some of these big churches are making way too much. And they set up the foundation for all this with their words. So that way, nobody ever has to use the Old Testimony as the rock and as the foundation. All they do is read a couple scriptures, a couple verses, and then they tell you about it doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense, y'all. Did Peter get left there so that way he could get exposed just like this? Right. How did Satan know he was in the mountain? Come on. Somebody tell me that. Huh? Peter's his disciple. He would know that. Would make sense that he calls him Satan later on, huh? Just think about it. Even though it's in a different book and a different instance, this is huge. This is huge. There's a reason why they wrote the story like that. Because even if he calls Peter Satan first, and then he goes up to the mountain and he's saying to this, get thee behind me, Satan. Once again, it's the same energy I feel from Peter. I feel in this mountain. It's the same thing. And they use the word devil, lowercase devil, so that way people, but then Satan is capitalized. Come on, that makes sense. Brothers and sisters, I hope that you guys don't do this part. And we end on this note. Don't ever do this. I think the guy's name is Peter, and he had some advice, and he told the people to stand there and take it. And his stand there and take it sounds something like this. Servants, be subject to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and the gentle, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the froward. For this is thankworthy. If a man for conscience toward God endure grief, suffering wrongfully. For what glory is it if, when ye be buffeted for your faults, ye shall take it patiently? But if, when ye do well and suffer for it, ye take it patiently, this is acceptable with God. Listen, to be forgiven of your faults, once again, that goes against the Most High God rebuking those that he takes back into the fold. Brothers and sisters, I love y'all dearly. I just want y'all to know that Peter was robbed so they could pay Paul a heavy price. And the price that we've all paid is this price that they call slavery. And right now, to this day, our people are looking for what they call reparations. But based on what they're saying, as the children of the servants to the former masters, we should what? We should suffer and endure grief. Man, that's sick and that's cold and that's vicious. Brothers and sisters, I salute you. I thank you for all your time. I hope that something was learned here tonight. I hope that y'all take this and really, this is a serious one. There ain't no jokes about this. Peter is something else in the flesh. He's not a regular, normal man. And if you go on believing that he's a standard, regular man, that's going to cost you. I love y'all. One more time. Good old salute. Spiritual Gumbo. Out. And be looking forward for a White Heaven 2024 coming soon to a screen near you, okay? You know what I'm saying? Peace out.